The Carolina Panthers play their first game of the preseason this week. We've got all the FanFest buzz to talk about. Let's get this thing started. Here we go.
Brace yourself for the ultimate Carolina Panthers experience. Welcome to Two Growls, One Roar, the podcast that hits harder than a Luke Kuechly tackle. We're diving deep into the heart of Panther Nation, bringing you unrivaled passion, insider takes, and pure gridiron fire. From Wilmington to the cosmos, this is your home for the fiercest football talk east or west of Charlotte.
Welcome in, folks, to another edition of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. This is your host, Carolina Dad. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Tonight, we just recorded an hour-long episode with a good friend of mine, CJ. Fantastic podcast and show. I hope you guys had a chance to tune in on YouTube, X, wherever you get your podcast. It was a good session. I'm going to take some of the questions that he asked and incorporate them into today's session for those that might have missed it. We're not going to go into an hour-long episode the way I did with him, which was a good conversation, but we are going to hit the highlights so you guys, maybe if you missed it, again, get a general sense. But we're going to kick things off recapping FanFest, and I hope you guys who got to go enjoyed it. It looks like a fantastic time. We spent time with the family. We went to South Carolina, took advantage of the tax-free weekend, getting all your school clothes, everything else you have to do. Fantastic deals down there at the Tanger outlets, whatever it is. Anyways, that was fun. Played a little putt-putt, got back home. It was very nice. All that aside, you don't care. Maybe you do. We are here to chop it up and talk Carolina Panthers, and let's talk about FanFest. In particular, the practice. We know live, there's a lot of good highlights, a lot of positive news coming out of there. I mean, you can feel the atmosphere now. I think over 40,000 tickets sold. It definitely looked like a really good crowd from what we could see. In the post game, of course, we heard from Canales. We got to hear from Adam Thielen. It was cool to see him and his family up there. As a family man myself, seeing the kids involved, that's always good to see. And then Jimmy Horn Jr. Some of the notable plays, and there were quite a few, which we can break down, starting with Xavier Legette, XL, our friend. Big XL, man. He had a fantastic play. Looks like a 40-yard touchdown, called it run. Play was moving to the right. Bryce got out of the pocket. He found him coming across the field, scored streaming. I mean, wide open down, just showing off his speed. I think people forget just how fast XL is. 4.3840 speed. Electrifying touchdown. Some folks got upset a little bit with the quote-unquote drop. Then we get 50 different angles that show that his arm was being held down, that it was clear pass interference by Mike Jackson, and XL did not actually drop the ball. When you think about, now this is just one particular play, any particular play, honestly, through training camp, through any of the highlights that we see, you just got to take a step back. I mean, we can't, at this point in time, especially without fans being there to watch this thing unfold and to see it, day in and day out, I'm not going to overreact to that kind of stuff. I'm just not. I'm not going to be one of those people that's beating down the throat of X player for not doing this, and this. So that was notable. And then Jimmy Horn Jr. showcasing a bit of his skill from what we saw. And again, thanks to the folks that posted this stuff because we got to see it. I know the Carolina Panthers did as well. I think it was like a play action to the right, Horn coming back across, using his speed to outflank the defense on the left, score, catch a touchdown pass from Andy Dalton. It looks like a really good play designed by Dave Canales. We know it was kind of a limited, it was technically FanFest and a padded practice and a scrimmage, but at the same time, we know there was guys out like J.C. Horn, so you were, not playing with a full deck of cards, so to speak. But Dave Canales did use this as an opportunity, as he mentioned, to really get the guys game ready. It's some of the things that we'll get to see in the preseason One, the game prep of just, hey, this is what the preparation looks like. This is our night before. This is our day of. This is when you go out and stretch, and the cadence of getting it together. This is what going into the locker room looks like. So you piece all those things together just to get a little bit of cohesion going. We'll get to see that in the preseason. We know we have joint practice coming up with the Cleveland Browns. Should be a good one. They're up to about 5 quarterbacks on the roster right now. I think maybe even 6. I can't keep up with it. I don't know if that's including Watson or not. They got some quarterbacks. Just signed Huntley, played for the Ravens. I mean, does not stop. So it should be a fun camp. Their defense is very stout. So I would anticipate and expect we get a pretty good look from a defense that should be good. So I also saw, as we get back into FanFest, Jimmy Horn Jr. not only scored the touchdown, but he stopped the fake punt that was from Sam Martin to Lathan Ransom, who almost scored. But Jimmy Horn Jr., I think a lot of guys probably would have let up and let him score. He did not. Made quite the play to save the touchdown. Also had a pretty solid night from David Moore, another player that continues to just be there and continues to produce. Now, if you have not followed me on YouTube, that's where you're going to get all the content. I mean, beyond what you get here, you get YouTube shorts, all that fun stuff. And I try not to just repost clips of the show. I also try to, add new video content for myself. I put a video out, I think it was yesterday, day before, maybe it was actually Friday. See, this is how days run together. Talking through a really good piece of information as we get down into the 53-man roster cuts. A few things to call out, but the primary thing when we talk about these 53-man rosters, which will be all the buzz in a few weeks, is the difference in a player being waived versus released or cut. Now, the difference between those two things has to do with years of experience. 4 or less, you're waived. That means you're available to be picked up, and you go through waiver wires. Someone claims you, that's where you go. You don't have a choice. When you are released or cut, you're a vested veteran with more than 4 years of experience, therefore 4 more years. So therefore, you have the choice to go wherever you want to go. And what's notable about this when it comes to the Carolina Panthers is we have this debate about 6 or 7 wide receivers. You connect the dots, and shout out to Mike K again for kind of calling this out. But you connect the dots with David Moore, his ties to the Panthers, his ties to wanting to be here, and Dave Canales. So if you're sitting there thinking, well, I don't know that we're going to be able to keep 7, there's a chance you cut him and let him go, knowing that he wants to be here. You sign him as a vested veteran on the practice squad and then call him up maybe like week 2 or something like that. I mean, so that's one of the things to talk about. The other thing when it comes to the waiver wires, we get into the 53-man roster cuts. When we get in there, I think a lot of times, and even last year, there's this big assumption that you're going to get who you want to get. And you're going to find a bunch of guys, and all these starters like just magically appear as we go through the waiver wires. And that's just not the case. Like the things have changed, and we even see it now. And this is another piece that Mike K brought up in their Access Panthers newsletter. When you also talk about Brant Tillis from a data analytics standpoint, the guys that most people are honing in on the same guys. And so unless you're at the front of the pack or one of the first few, you may not get the guy you want. So how do you circumvent that? You make a trade. And so you may see some additional trades pop up. When you think about the Panthers last year going out and getting Mike Jackson, but you may have a situation like that where you know you have a need at X position and you gotta figure it out. So one of the things that we can, as we get back onto track here and talk about these claims, of course, Panthers just signed another linebacker. It continues to be a theme, inside linebacker, that is. Continues to be a theme for the Panthers, trying to figure out this position. I wonder if they just weren't prepared for Josie Jewell to go out like this or what. But they did bring in Chris Barnes, got a little bit of experience, not a ton, and they waived, there we go, the word waived, to a CV Nomuru, so the undrafted free agent rookie linebacker. So Panthers continue to do that. Now, before we get into the thick of some of what we talked about in the podcast that I recorded with CJ tonight, we have to take a second to shout out to the Panthers also for the fantastic job they did with the Make-A-Wish. Let's see. Yeah, Jace Garland, the perfect play, Make-A-Wish, 12-year-old battling bone cancer. I mean, you take moments as, again, I'm a dad, and kids are the number one priority with my wife. It's the family. I cannot imagine what it is like for these families to go through these type of things. But good for the Panthers, giving Jace the opportunity to run the perfect play and score a touchdown. They look like nothing. Signed an honorary contract, got his NIL deal, all those things. I mean, yeah, fantastic to see stuff like that play out. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of what we talked about on the podcast tonight. Again, I'm not going to spend an hour the way we did, which was a great episode if you want to go back and watch in more detail. But I'll try to hit on the questions that we talked about. We opened it up and said, what has stood out to you most from Panthers training camp? And I covered a lot of things. So for me, I look at the energy, the fan engagement, the excitement that's surrounding this team. And we're not there, but you saw it at FanFest. And I think all those things with Dave Canales leading this thing in year 2, he's just more comfortable. He seems to be at ease, knows what he's doing, knows what he wants. And I think his leadership is kind of carrying over into the maturation of the entire team. So I got to put that in one bucket. I also look at Bryce Young and in particular his maturation of where he is in his leadership, from going from this quiet, small guy that, people last year were like, yeah, this is not really his leadership style to be vocal and this, to having the confidence, to being able to run the system, to be able to advance further into the system. One of the things I talked about, again, is I like to set the tone and pace for where we are. It's like going from math 101 to math 102 or 3 or calculus. That's how advanced you're able to get when you have the continuity that's there. And that's one thing where I think Bryce Young is gonna shine. And also the vocalness, is just the yappiness, the Bama Bryce that we thought. I think you also have to chalk up the physicality, the competitive nature that we are seeing, whether it's maybe a possible fight breaking out, a guy popping somebody, the celebrations, the throwing the balls, all the back and forth that we see there. Hands down, those things get me excited for the culture. Now, again, maintaining this within what Canales wants of not being stupid. Like, yeah. You also have to talk about the explosive plays. Like we said, you think about last year and the year before, we were stressing about the deep ball. We were stressing about Bryce Young getting the ball down the field, having the ability to do that. And like we worried. That's not the case. Now it's like we've got a full arsenal of players in the wide receiver room, running backs, tight end group that can play football and open this thing up. The last one, because this is broadly speaking, the rise of the defense. And it's early, but the rise of the defense, winning some of the days, winning some of the battles. Like overall, you have to feel confident about where the defense sits. So the second question that we talked through, or topic, was which position group has impressed you the most in camp? For me, I talked through the usuals of the wide receiver position. I said, yes, I think we could go top down and say wide receiver, probably the one that sticks out. I mean, you look at the amount of talent that's there. But I think for me, it was the interior defensive line. Healthy Derrick Brown. And I know we haven't seen a lot of Bobby Brown, but we've heard a lot and seen a lot with Tershawn, Turk Wharton. So for me, you mix those in with Ashawn Robinson, the interior of the defensive line, which is the foundational starting point of stopping the run, vastly improved. So I could go interior defensive line or wide receivers. And I even went, not in particular by position, but, JT Sanders, of course, sticking out. Shaw Smith-Wade having a fantastic camp. And you kind of go through, and we haven't really talked a lot about the offensive line, but in general seems to be doing pretty well. And same thing for the running back group. All right. Then we have the question raised of, is there a dark horse candidate on the roster who could make the 53? Basically, is there someone out there that we haven't really talked about? And I think Corey Thornton, the cornerback out of Louisville, undrafted free agent, who's seeing a lot of playing time with some of the vet days that J.C. Horn gets, like, he's got to be one in the mix. He's had some good, he's had some bad. But I think if we're talking about possible roster spots, that who can make what and how this thing's going to play out, I put him in the mix. And then just the nature of needing bodies at a particular position, I also put Bam Martin-Scott. Those are my two. I'm trying to, we're talking fringe 53-man roster. Where does it play out? So I do have those, or did have those two in particular. We talked about, the question posed was, are we seeing any early signs of innovation or scheme changes from Dave Canales? And like I said, we're not there. We only see what we can see, what's posted, the clips, the highlights, and thankfully we got a lot of those from FanFest. And I said yes. Like, to a certain extent of what we've been given, I do think we're seeing changes. And one, I think it's two things. It's the culture change, number one, for Dave Canales to make a decision to play the starters. We could go back and argue if whether or not that mattered last year. I can't tell you. But I think Dave Canales did learn in general that this is probably a good thing to dust off some of the rust. And there's just things you cannot simulate in a practice, in a controlled environment. But I do think, and again, we've talked about the basketball term, layout that Dave Canales says with the wide receiver position. I think we are going to see a lot of good things because you do have a diverse group of players with different skill sets. And man, this one really is sticking out to me as we talk about getting into the roster. Something I'm going to continue to say is, if Hunter Renfrow continues to shine, continues to be the part that we think he can be, we're going to be having a very tough conversation about his reps, his snaps, his targets compared to Adam Thielen. Like, that's just the nature of where this is going to go. If he continues to do what he's doing, it's going to be hard to keep him off the field, which is a good thing. We wanted the competition. Now you got it, but now you got to learn how to live with it and manage it from that standpoint. So that was part of what stuck out for me there. Last question. Well, I guess we had two more. One was a record prediction, which I've talked a lot about our record, so I'm not going to talk to you guys about it today. The other question was, on paper, do you feel the defense has improved? And we went through the defenses it is today, and we checked the boxes. Defensive front, which I already talked about, defensive line improved. Outside linebackers improved, or I would say slightly improved or better. And so I tip my hat there. We work out to the cornerbacks, feel good there. And again, we're talking starters. Then we start, of course, to get into concerns with the inside linebackers. We get into concerns with the depth at the cornerback position. And we get into concerns with depth at the safety position, figuring out who's going to start. By the accounts we got, Nick Scott was starting. And I know, me personally, I'm one of those. I don't know that Nick Scott should be your starting safety, but it's really just a matter of where the Carolina Panthers fit with Ejiro Evero. We did have a bonus question, two bonus questions. One was pertaining to the record for the Panthers in the first four games. Like, what would I be satisfied with? And we also talked about the hot seat, whether it was a player or coach. Of course, player or coach-wise, we kind of agreed it's Ejiro Evero. CJ believed Bryce Young was on the hot seat. And, to a certain extent, he is. Now, that's not to say he's done. We're not ready to get in that frame, but I got to frame this for you, and that mindset. Bryce Young coming up on a big decision. The Panthers have to decide, hey, we're giving you the 5th-year option. Are we going to pick that up? Okay. Then are we going to give you the big contract? Because that's going to come. Like, naturally, you're going to have to pay your quarterback at this point 50 to 60 million per year. Do you want to pay that? Is this investment going to work out? And you have to think about Dave Canales, man. He was that quick to bench Bryce. He knows he's vying for his job as well. And if he feels like Bryce is the one holding him back, and again, this is not me saying these things or this, just talking through the frame of where CJ was. For me, I looked at it a few ways. Agree with Evero being there as the coach, like we said. I think about defensively a DJ Johnson, potentially. We talked about Shai Tuttle. I mean, David Moore naturally. So you kind of got a mixture. Jaden Crumity, some of these guys, Chandler Zavala, I put his name in there. Guys that have been here, been around, but there's potential, depending on how the roster shakes out, that they might not be on the 53-man roster. The last one, we'll probably close it out for today. Appreciate you guys as always. The last question was, what would I be satisfied with, or for our record through the first 4 games? For me, it's 2-2. Carolina Panthers need to be 2-2. Ideally, they need to be. I would love to see them be 3-1. Jacksonville, Arizona, Atlanta, and New England. You should be able to get 3, maybe even 4 wins out of that. But I tailored it down to 2 simply because, like, hey, we haven't really won anything. So we need to see them get to this 2-win mark. 500 would be ideal. If we're talking 1-3 or 0-4, we got some concerns. It's very hard to overcome if you start out of the gate slow and don't get to the point that you want to get to. So anyways, that was fun. That's going to do it for today's episode. As always, this is Carolina Dad.